Whoa.
What the hell?
Hold on. Dave home.
Who is that?
Middle of the night. The Strangers Chapter 1 came out just last year in 2024, and it is officially the first part of a relaunch of series in an intended standalone trilogy. This first film, for the most part, can be seen as a remake of the 2008 film, which starred Liv Tyler and Scott Speedman, and we have a young couple out for a drive when their car breaks down, forcing them to stay at an isolated bed and breakfast where they are soon stalked by a number of masked menaces who clearly plan to kill these two people after they've had their fun scaring them over and over and over again. I chose this film to be the next part of my 52-week horror movie challenge under the 18th week prompt, The Killer Wears a Mask. A little fun factoid for you, the first movie that came out in 2008 holds a warm spot in my heart because it was around that time in my life that I first started reviewing movies as a whole, and it was one of the first movies ever that I reviewed. Also at that time, I was very new to horror. Growing up, for the most part, I wasn't really allowed to watch horror, or I wasn't really interested in watching horror, and it wasn't until about 2009 that I really dove into everything horror. A lot of the 80s stuff, slashers, what have you, and then the Paranormal Activity movies came out and all that. So in 2008, whenever I would watch something horror adjacent, which I considered The Strangers to be, it was an interesting experience, to tell you the truth. And the first Strangers, 2008, enraptured me. I thought it was really creepy. It got on my nerves. It was just so good. And maybe that's just because I hadn't really dug into a lot of horror at that time in my life. But even today, looking back, I still think that it is relatively well made. So I was going into this with bated breath. I am completely aware that a lot of people consider this trilogy to be terrible. They consider chapter 1 to be bad. They consider chapter 2 to be bad. And even though chapter 3 isn't out yet, people have already determined it will also be bad because the first two are bad. So I went into this cautiously optimistic, but not much more than that. And to be honest with you, I didn't really care for the sequel to the original film, which was called The Strangers Prey at Night. And I think that most people consider that movie to be better than these weird trilogy films. I disagree with that, though. I think that this first chapter is, for the most part, unnecessary, but it does have elements that I think are good. Its heart was in the right place for the most part throughout this film. But let's go ahead and dig deep into the positives. In general, I believe this movie is fair. It's nothing extremely well done. It's nothing super memorable. However, I think it's pretty important to note that it's not the trash that everybody else has said that it is. It definitely has some technical flaws, for sure. And I think that those technical flaws undoubtedly hold it back. But it really is truly important to note that what they thought to do with this film, they succeeded. This is a movie that is fair. The heart was in the right place. It's essentially the same story as that first 2008 film, so you have a couple that's just surrounded in the middle of nowhere by some weirdos wearing masks that are taunting them for a majority of the film. It's a slow-burning thriller in the same exact way that the 2008 film was. Things escalate to a point of no return, and there you go. This film mostly does all of that well enough for what it is. I also think that the main actress in this film is the MVP. She sold fear extremely well. I'd say that she was much better than her male counterpart, or really anybody else in the movie. It's hard to see if the people wearing masks are good actors or not because they're just wearing masks. But her male counterpart, her partner in the film, he specifically dragged it down. I feel like if you're somebody who hates the movie based off of all of its different flaws, her performance might be something that you're looking past without even realizing it, just because all the flaws might overpower it. But it is there, it is well done. It honestly makes the movie a lot more watchable. In terms of negatives, though, I think that a mass majority of people are correct in general when it comes down to saying that there's more negatives than positives. There's a lot of technical things going on in this movie that just, they're not great. Because first and foremost, just because the main actress is doing a great job, she's the MVP, does not mean that everybody else is. And I've already kind of touched base on this, but her male counterpart was kind of hot garbage. He was in your face bad. And when they went to the gas station earlier on in the movie, the attendants there are acting so over the top, it's ridiculous. Like, they are trying to make this movie so bad that it's good almost. Also, another negative about the film that I noticed right from the get-go is the setting. In the 2008 film, it was a low-budget type of movie, so they couldn't really do much, and that worked to their advantage because for the most part, that movie was set in one location. It was just like this cabin in the middle of the woods while these masked menaces terrorized the couple. That's how the movie mostly starts in this film, and then it kind of just branches out a little bit, and then the couple are seen running out of the house, into the woods, into a shed, out of the shed, back to the house, back to the woods. It's all over the place a little bit. It gets watered down a little bit in terms of location. You want the film to feel a certain way. You want it to feel claustrophobic. You want it to feel contained. You want it to feel simple, because that is specifically the stuff that worked for the 2008 film. By allowing these characters to leave their house, go to the shed across the way, go throughout the woods, it waters it down. It opens the playing field to a point where it's not as interesting. And I think that was actually my complaint watching Prey at Night. I could be wrong. It's been a long time since I saw that movie. I don't really remember all that much about it, but something about the woods stands out to me as that's the setting. So again, the setting is a negative because it should have just kept things contained and claustrophobic. That's what works for the film. The next negative would be that it's predictable. And I say this because there's so many super cliche predictable moments in the film. Again, I already kind of talked about the attendants at the gas station, but there's so many horror films that open that specific way, where they're driving, their car shuts down, the gas station is filled with really weird people that are sketchy, and they have to stay the night at either a hotel, motel, bed and breakfast, what have you, while really bad things happen. This is Horror 101. It's trope city, it's cliche all the way, which means at the end of the day, it's predictable. I could have written what happens in this movie down to a T. I also want to say that the movie feels overproduced. Again, the original movie, the 2008 film, had a low budget, something like $8 million, and it is an example of a low budget, high box office, because it understood its limitations and it embraced it. While this one tried to mimic that while also having a higher budget. And you can tell. You can tell that the production value is a lot higher, which it works for its detriment, makes it worse. Everything should be contained and grounded, but it's not. It's light, it's goofy, it's over the top. It feels almost like fan fiction. That's what the movie feels like, fan fiction. At times it works really, really well, but I think that more often than not, it comes off as a poor imitation. At the end of the day, what is my final score for The Strangers Chapter 1? I think that in general, the movie sought to do something specific and it mostly succeeded. That's a good thing, but it's not without its own set of flaws. The production quality is too much. The acting, for the most part, isn't all that great. The setting isn't contained like it should be. Like I said, should be more claustrophobic. And all of these things combined makes the movie more predictable, less scary, less interesting, and it starts to make the viewer wonder why this needed to be made, first of all, and second of all, why it needed to be a trilogy. Overall, okay movie. I will be checking out the other movies sooner rather than later, but as it is now, my final score for The Strangers Chapter 1 is 54 out of 100 possible stars, 54%, or a D+ letter grade on my grading system. And I know, once again, I'm a lot more lenient when it comes down to my scores and how that relates to a letter grade, but it is what it is. Guys, what did you think about The Strangers Chapter 1? Leave your thoughts about that in the comments section down below. What is your favorite Strangers film other than the first movie that came out in 2008? I think that's everybody's favorite, but what's everybody's second favorite, I guess? Leave your thoughts in the comments section down below. And as for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit the like, subscribe button, and bell to be notified when I come out with my next film for the 52-week horror movie challenge. And until that day comes, peace out.